Hi and welcome to the show. This time I'm going to be joined by Greg Oddy and Amanda Graham from downsizing.com.au with some great advice and opportunities for you if downsizing is what you are planning to do. There have been lots of studies that point to the benefits of having a pet in later life. Well, not everyone has a pet when they move in, but they may just want to get one after they move in. Amanda's going to tell us today that the most searched properties on the downsizing site are to do with pets. So how are developers responding to that trend? Amanda tells us today in the show. I talked to Greg Oddy and catch up with him at Inman Connect in New York recently. He was there looking at international downsizing trends, and he gives us some staggering facts about downsizers and how you and I are dominating the market. Amanda Graham tells us about a survey by downsizing.com.au and LJ Hooker that has revealed the extent of vacant rooms that could be an answer to housing affordability and how that could be a golden opportunity for downsizers. And of course, we've got some great examples of featured downsizer properties to show you as well. A lot to get through today, so let's get underway. As I said at the start of the show, Amanda Graham from downsizing.com.au says that the most searched properties on their site has to do with pets. Amanda joins me to talk about that. Amanda, welcome to the show.
Hi, Kevin.
How big an issue is this for people who are looking at downsizing to have their pets? I think I know the answer to this, but let's talk about it anyway.
Yeah, look, it is a very big issue and we knew that it would be. So we did a survey of visitors to the website and we found that 60% of them, it was actually just over 60% of them, either had a pet currently or wanted to have a pet. So it was really important for them to be able to locate pet-friendly properties. And this information is often not readily available. So we introduced a special search category to help people, sift through what was available in their area of search so that they could more easily find these pet-friendly properties.
Yeah,
and I mean, you do, sorry.
No, you go ahead, please.
I was going to say, you do have to think that, for many people, when they've brought up a family, they've, brought up the kids have left school, they've moved on. At that stage, typically, the family still has an older dog. So it's, if that dog is 15 years old, he's very much a member of the family. It's like having another child. Nobody is going to dump their dog at that stage so they can go and live in an apartment. So it's a very important part of the search process.
Yeah, an interesting story. Well, I think it is anyway. We've got two children and as they were growing up, they both wanted a pet. So we bought, a number of years, we bought a couple of dogs. And ultimately, as they left home and got married, the dog stayed home with us. So this is quite often.
I think that's so typical of every family, isn't it? The kid nagging for a dog, and then you end up being left with the dog, who is, of course, a very beloved family member, or two dogs.
Absolutely, and unfortunately, when you do lose them, it is like losing another member of the family. Amanda, there have been so many studies that have looked into the benefits of having pets in later life, in particular. Now, not everyone, of course, has a pet when they first move into this type of accommodation, but they may want to get one after they move in. So it should be something that they want to consider, and something that I think developers need to be looking at as well.
Yes, because there's been a lot of talk about loneliness in old age, especially when people live alone or their partner's passed away or their marriage has broken up later in life. And as we all know, pets are fantastic companions. And not only that, but, you go out walking a dog, for instance, and you do get chatting to everybody else in the park. People come up and talk to you, so you make a whole lot of new friends, and not to mention the benefits of the regular exercise in taking them out. So yes, pets are very, very important.
I know in the website you talk to developers as well as consumers. You're supplying a service for consumers, but you're very much in touch with developers. Do you sense from them that they are starting to recognise this? Is this becoming an important part of the consideration of what they build?
Yes, I think people are now recognising that people are open to downsizing at a younger age. and that if you're at that stage where you have pets, then a lot of people are either not going to consider moving unless they can bring their elderly pet with them, and looking forward down the track, people do want that sort of companionship. So it is a very important part. I mean, there will still be some developments that may not allow them, but we're finding more and more that people are recognising that it's an important aspect of ageing to be able to have a pet if you do want one.
You've only got to look at what's happening in the rental environment, and how if you allow a pet in a rental property, it's going to be so much easier to rent it. And the same thing's going to happen with this huge population that's coming through. Of course, pets is one important consideration when you're looking at downsizing. I thought it might be good to go through a few others as well, just to help folks who are probably thinking about this. What are some of the considerations you think are very important?
Well, the first thing is that there are a lot of options out there, and there are a whole lot of different types of legal title and occupancy rights. So the first thing is obviously to have a look at what's out there in the price point in the area that you want. But secondly, it is going to be very, very important to get legal advice before you commit, to fully understand what it is that you're buying into, because it may not be as simple as just moving into another residential house. The other thing is that if you are thinking about downsizing, then you do need to get expert financial advice and seek that advice before you make any decisions, because it may, the fact that you're cashing up the family home, you may want to put some money in the bank, you may actually find that that affects your eligibility for the age pension. So all of those considerations are very important.
I think to make a list of the features, I think sometimes I've seen with buyers who are going to buy a property that they'll come up with an enormous wish list of what they want. I think too, when you're going through any change like this, you've got to certainly make a wish list, but be prepared to be a little bit flexible, because sometimes you can't get everything. So work out what are the most important features you need, Amanda.
Yes. Well, I think the other side of that coin is location as well, because often people will consider moving further afield in retirement because you may have lived in a local area all your life, but the reality is that to sell up and downsize within that local area, that might be difficult, especially if you're looking at buying an apartment with stamp duty. There may not be any money left over, and a lot of people say that. So people may need to move further afield to be able to get more bang for their buck in terms of what they buy next. People are also looking for lifestyle features. People will look for different things. It's horses for courses. Some people will be wanting inner city living. Other people are happy to move further out of the city if it means they can have a golf course on their doorstep, or if they can park the caravan or the boat on site, and a lot of villages do specialise in that sort of storage.
Yeah, gee, that's a good point too. I think as well, if just before we close off on this one, if we can just talk about incentives for a moment. I think it's always good to explore what incentives are available both at a state and a federal level. But what's happening in that area? Is there much movement from governments to help with this, because it is a growing need?
I think not enough. There has been a little bit of talk about introducing some stamp duty incentives to help people move or downsize later in life if they're moving into supposedly their last home. But there really hasn't been a lot of that actually happening in practice. And I think, this is a whole other story, but once we get into that discussion about the volume of bedrooms, the value of property that's tied up with these empty nesters. People are talking about how do young people access the property market? How do they get on the ladder? We've got a whole lot of housing stock that's tied up here, and people are finding it difficult to both find what they want or make it stack up financially to be able to downsize when they actually want to do that.
Yeah, that's a subject all on its own, and we'll treat that as a separate interview, I think. Amanda Graham, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Kevin.
And stay with us. We've got lots more to come. Shortly, my talk with Greg Oddy about the size of the downsizer market and how, if you are a downsizer, the power is with you. I speak to Greg in New York shortly. But in the meantime, if a place by the beach is what you're after, you're going to love this. Recently, I was fortunate enough to be able to attend a large real estate conference in New York. Greg Oddy from downsizing.com.au was there as well, looking at the trends, what developers and agents are doing there to cater for this huge emerging market demand. I caught up with him to discuss downsizing from an agent's perspective, and I asked him to identify what makes an ideal downsizer property. In other words, what people are really searching for. Here was his response.
So where we're seeing downsizers buying, you've got your traditional sea change and tree change. That still happens. It's just because there's so many more people now in that downsizing bracket that they're looking to stay local as much as they can, and that's meaning they need to look at different types of properties, and that certainly is new apartment stock, luxury new apartment stock that's got great finishes, great appliances. And that could also mean villas, sometimes townhouses if the bedroom's downstairs, or smaller homes even. There's a bit of a trend in America with the tiny homes phase that's been running for a while, and I'm now starting to see a little bit of that in Australia as well, and that's certainly the kind of property that is appealing to the demographic that we're dealing with, the baby boomers between 55 to 65 and maybe even 45. They're not quite baby boomers, but they're certainly of the bracket that kids have gone, now we've got time to do other things with our life, and we don't want to spend time in the backyard. We want to spend it with each other or with family or travelling or doing other things.
It's very much lock and leave, isn't it?
Absolutely.
If you can lock it up, leave it, body corporate's going to take care of anything. You can travel for months without having to worry. So that's pretty much what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And the developers that we're speaking to now understand this, and they're building properties that are suitable more so for someone who's going to be in their older years. Things like lower power points, wider doors if someone's in a wheelchair. A lot of research about bringing the outdoors indoors and having that alfresco type of atmosphere where entertainment's important as well for this group. Great storage is really important because they want to have family come and visit and spend some time with them. So there's a definite change in what's happening out there, and that's driven by, one, there's not enough retirement properties to go around, and the sheer number of people that are looking to downsize.
It also, I guess, is important to be close to facilities. You don't want to be too remote, close to hospitals, shopping centres and so on.
Yeah.
School's not so important?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the difference that we find with the downsizer in their search fields, what they're after, is the radius is a lot higher. So a millennial or a younger family or a first home buyer, schools is usually fairly important, because you have to be in right location or you can't get into certain schools. I mean, that's not an issue for the downsizer, obviously. Obviously, medical makes sense, and proximity to transport where possible. But they're also considering how close they are to friends and family in an area they've already lived for quite some time, if they're not moving away and they're staying local. So that's a big factor.
I imagine another factor too would be the age of the property and its need for maintenance, wouldn't it? I mean, some of the newer apartments are not going to need much maintenance for, maybe 5-6 years.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
An older style may do.
We're seeing more demand for the newer stock because they want these great new luxury appliances, and that seems to be, and they've got the money to spend more often than not. So we're seeing a bit, and the change there is that people that were in that older demographic traditionally didn't like to buy off the plan because they'd like to touch it, feel it, and walk through it. So, I mean, one tip is you've got to have the display home, at least, or one unit built for this demographic, because then they can certainly visualise it a lot more. But they're starting to come around and look at more and more stuff off the plan.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Yeah, about how they're feeling with looking at properties off the plan, or if they need to feel and touch them.
They still do to some degree. They depending on where they sit in the age bracket and if they bought investment properties before. But generally, the feeling they've needed to be inside the property, but that's just changing ever so slightly. And the smarter developers, well, they all try and have a display suite where possible, but that really helps with our demographic if they get to that level.
Greg, great talking to you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kevin.
And we'll look forward to catching up again soon.
Thank you.
Up next, Amanda will rejoin me to take a different approach, a different look to housing affordability and how you and I, as downsizers, can help. That in just a moment. But for now, if you've been wondering what it's really like in a retirement village, check this out.
I really like being in the village. In fact, I love it and I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. I really wouldn't.
It's the best lifestyle you can ever have, and you've got the support of people around you, that if you need it, they're there for you.
There's entertainment if you want it. If not, you can be by yourself in your unit and read a book, whatever you're most comfortable with. So you've got the freedom to do really what you want to do.
There's something for everybody to do that will keep them happy.
When you can wake up and be happy and go to sleep and be happy, you know you're in the right place.
At the same time as Australia is experiencing an affordability housing crisis, there is a treasure trove of housing supply sitting idle and unused in every suburb and town across Australia. Now, that potential supply comes in the form of empty bedrooms, which were once filled with the noise and the excitement and chaos of family life, but now they sit vacant. Sometimes the bedrooms are filled with the clutter of yesteryear, while others are used sporadically for the occasional return of an adult child or visit from a grandchild. What a delight that is. A new survey by downsizing.com.au and LJ Hooker has revealed the extent of this potential supply and the ways that we can unlock it. Downsizing.com.au co-founder Amanda Graham says that a staggering 90% of people surveyed said that they had a spare unused bedroom. Amanda, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Kevin.
I believe it was even more incredible just how many people said that they had more than one bedroom spare, Amanda.
Yes, 40% said they had 2 spare bedrooms and 20% said they actually had 3 spare bedrooms.
Incredible, yeah.
So you think about the housing stock that's tied up there being underutilised. And it's really, people spend their whole lives moving up the property ladder, and there's been so much discussion about first home buyers getting onto that property ladder, and yet you've got people who are basically wedged at the top of the property ladder and are really finding it difficult to make that decision to downsize for lots of different reasons.
Do you think, desirable for people to rent rooms out as opposed to moving to more suitable accommodation? Is it just an option?
Well, I think it's an option. It may not be the best long-term option, but for a lot of people, they're looking for something, if they've been made redundant, they may need to keep paying their mortgage. If they've had a partner who's died, they may not, feel ready to make some major decisions about where to move, or, if they're not in that frame of mind. So definitely as a temporary thing, it can certainly help with your cash flows. I think the other side to renting out rooms is, there are a number of sort of older households that don't always get much publicity, but there are a lot of seniors who are sharing because that's an affordable option for them, particularly once they're on the pension and they're no longer working.
Did the research reveal any blockages to people downsizing, things like finance or costs? Did they express any concern?
I think there's a number of factors. One of the big ones is that, they've just been unable to find the style of accommodation that they wanted that was affordable in the locations that they liked or wanted. Certainly stamp duty is a big consideration because people would say, and just the cost of selling, the cost of transacting generally, because obviously, your house is worth a certain amount of money after a period of time. In theory, you can cash that up, but in reality, there's a whole lot of transaction costs that come out of that. And particularly if you're buying a new place, there is a very significant stamp duty cost as properties have gone up. There are obviously some styles of accommodation where stamp duty doesn't apply that are featured on our website. So there's a whole range of different options out there, but it's a very complicated process to go through all of that.
Yeah, all that information, of course, is available on the website, downsizing.com.au. Can I just ask you now about, this is a political question, but politicians, state and federal, are always talking about housing affordability, particularly as it relates to first home buyers. So we see some great incentives for first home buyers. What about incentives for baby boomers looking to downsize?
Yeah, I think it's something that has got to be on the table because that's going to unlock an amazing amount of housing supply and allow other families to move up the ladder. And people do need some sort of financial security in their older age group too. You know, it's very hard when you don't know exactly how long you're going to live for, and to think of squandering perhaps $100,000 in stamp duty is a very large chunk of money that people could do a lot else with at that stage in their life.
Yeah, well, let's hope that politicians everywhere will respond to this. Eventually they will. I guess they're going to be forced into it, even if it's only because their own parents will be going through it. So we'll just have to hope that does happen.
Perhaps the other thing I should just mention is that obviously one of the considerations here is that parents are more and more helping younger people with deposits. So this whole downsizing stage is very important in terms of unlocking some of that home equity and helping younger people onto the property ladder. And that is a big driver for a lot of people who are considering downsizing.
That's a very good point. Very good point. We've spoken here about renting out bedrooms, you know, and we know that there's a huge number of spare rooms around Australia. I think would be irresponsible of us not to say, hey, there's some caution here. You need to be very careful. If someone's interested in doing this, what would be your advice about how they should safeguard themselves around security?
Well, first of all, obviously, it's important to always ask for and check a number of personal references, you know, because this person is going to be coming into your home. The other side of this is that there are a whole lot of helpful legal resources that cost nothing. There's the Tenants Union of New South Wales as one example, which provides a whole lot of online resources. They recommend that you enter into a housing agreement with people that you're co-renting with or renting a room to, and there are a whole lot of legal considerations that you should be considering. So again, we do have links to those sorts of resources on the website.
Oh, that's handy to know, because I think a lesson I've learned is that it's easy to get someone into accommodation, sometimes very hard to get them out. So
yes, exactly.
You've got to be very wary.
And I should say too that in line with the volume of people that were looking to either rent out their own rooms or share with others, we did introduce the free senior flatmates listings on the website to help connect people with empty bedrooms with people who were looking for rental accommodation.
And what's been the uptake on that like?
Well, it's amazing, actually. There has been this huge rise in people looking for affordable rentals as they get older, because obviously not everybody owns their own home, or people go through divorces or bankruptcy or, you know, whatever it is. So not everybody is left in a situation where they're financially secure. And there's particularly a lot of women who are looking for accommodation. And I think at that stage too, people are often looking for a more social environment, particularly if they're no longer working. They want someone who's compatible. And yes, there are flatmates websites that tend to be full of university students looking for other university students. So in our case, we just thought these were people who were already using our site, so why not connect them up while they're there on the site searching for rentals.
And this is available through the site downsizing.com.au?
Yes, it's through downsizing.com.au, and they are free listings for people who are looking for personal accommodation, either renting out a room in their house or looking for a share accommodation.
I opened up this story by talking to you about the research that you had done, downsizing.com.au with LJ Hooker. Can you just round us out? Any final conclusions from that survey?
Well, one of the really interesting things that came out of that was that there are estimates that there's somewhere between 4 and 7 million spare bedrooms available across Australia, which is just a massive amount of housing supply. So the question really becomes, how can we access that resource, you know, in a way which is going to be helpful.
Yeah, well, just a reminder once again, if you go to the website downsizing.com.au, there's a lot of information there about that, and I particularly love that opportunity for people to look for a flatmate or get some affordable rental accommodation. So it's a great idea.
Yes, I think you've got to remember that this particular group of baby boomers were the ones that almost kicked off share housing. You know, when you look back, when they were students, you know, we've all had that experience of sharing houses. I think we've all taken lessons away from that, as you mentioned, Kevin. You know, sometimes it's harder to move people on. Yeah. So I think people do come to this concept, you know, with a level of experience and maturity.
Amanda Graham, always great talking to you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Kevin.
Well, that's it for another show. Thanks to Amanda Graham and Greg Oddy for their wonderful insights. And if you want to know more, just go to the downsizing site, downsizing.com.au. All the best, and I'll see you next time.
Welcome to Open House NYC. Today's show is all about homes that were styled to sell. We join some of the biggest names in design for a look at how their choices create a unique aesthetic while maintaining universal appeal. We start things off with friend of the show, Cheryl Eisen, right in the heart of Midtown Manhattan. Cheryl created a world befitting a residence named Baccarat, one that glitters with glamour and elegance at every turn. The impressive dimensions of the main entertaining space are made intimate through her graceful, low-profile furnishings that help make the city views the star of the show. Check it out.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Eisen, founder of Interior Marketing Group. Today, I'm coming to you from the heart of Manhattan at the world-famous Baccarat Hotel and Residences. We've decorated this home to be a lavish ode to New York luxury. From the grass cloth wallpaper to the signature Baccarat crystal ceiling fixture, a certain tone is set for the grandeur that awaits you. Follow me and we'll take a closer look. When designing a home that has the most beautiful 360-degree views of New York City, it's important to honor these features, not compete with them. For example, instead of heavy, textured curtains, I chose light and airy draperies to frame the views, let the light in, and make sure that this scene outside remains the focus. I also used low-profile furniture, like this custom sectional, to further accentuate these staggering 14-foot ceilings. People lucky enough to live in the Baccarat don't just eat, they dine, and in style. I've created seating for 10, making it the perfect space for a dinner party. I love using comfortable dining chairs with fabrics you just want to run your hands over. I used a gorgeous area rug and a chandelier to delineate the dining from the living space. This professional-grade kitchen has everything you could possibly want, and more. From somatic cabinetry to top-of-the-line appliances throughout. We took advantage of the extra space and created a custom breakfast nook, hanging a sculptural glass-blown chandelier vertically, as well as our custom 8-foot triptych. We draw your eye upward. Notice how this piece subtly mirrors the nuances of the New York skyline just outside. We did something different in all 4 bedrooms of the home, but sophistication was saved for the master. Let's take a look. I love this room. Can you imagine waking up to this every morning? A dramatic custom headboard stretches the entire length of the wall. One of our signature elements is a curved sofa in the corner of a master. I think every master should have the perfect place for a romantic nightcap. Next door, you'll find a master closet the size of most studio apartments. And the master ensuite bathroom will definitely become your own daily indulgence. Decked out in Lido marble, this one-of-a-kind bathroom has a Victoria and Albert soaking tub and radiant heated floors for those chilly winter mornings. And for those chilly winter evenings, follow me. At the end of the day, nothing's more indulgent than unwinding by the fire with Baccarat crystal and crystal clear views. I hope you've enjoyed exploring this amazing residence in the sky and that you've drawn some inspiration from the design elements we've used here. See you soon.